Hey, hello, Mark.
Hey, Mike.
How are
How's
you?
it going? How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm well.
I'm well. Good. Looks like we got two of you on there.
Yeah. I'm
Oh, you must have the phone.
using the
Using the
right.
right.
There you are.
There I am. Hey, got a question for you. How do you connect to your databases? You got a Windows or Mac?
Not Mac.
Okay. So what do you use Putty or do you have something better?
Oh, Putty.
Putty?
So Putty to connect to the host.
Okay.
Then we've got Code, SQL Developer,
Okay.
18 other tools.
All righty. Yeah, I started the new job and it's all Windows based. So I have to figure out how to use Windows again.
What were you using before?
Mac.
Mac.
No,
Wow.
no.
So Putty can't be that. Where'd you start?
I started yesterday, Monday, at a
And
company called
what company?
Donati. They're a consulting company. So
So Windows. How long you been on Apple?
15
Hey,
years.
Scott.
Hey there.
Scott.
15 years on Apple.
Yep. Well, they gave me a what do you call it? A Microsoft Surface Pro. I don't know.
My only gripe about the Surface is you have to buy so much stuff for peripherals,
Oh,
for docking and everything else. I mean, it's reasonably priced just for the box itself, but I had to spend like $300 out of my own pocket to get it
oh.
to mate with my, external monitors and all that kind of stuff. So
I
it,
just found one. I got a Pro 6. I found one on Amazon for 85,
well, that's a good deal.
and it says that you can go to 2 monitors.
Yep.
So it's got the internet and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It's just I'm so used to my Mac that yeah, I'm relearning how to use the Windows. I haven't had to use
Oh, wow.
Windows in forever. So yeah, it's a different world.
Uh-huh. No doubt. For sure.
I mean, in Mac it just works. I don't have to worry about all this stuff. The other problem is you can only get to this database servers through a Citrix box.
Right.
And so, my question is, well, how the hell do I get files from my laptop to the to the Citrix? How do you, because they try to lock that down, but how, sometimes you need files. So
Uh-huh.
I'm going to use Dropbox in the meantime, but I'm sure there's probably some kind of violation there, you know.
Well,
So
as long as it's open, it's there. I was going to suggest Dropbox myself.
yeah. It's just well, for example, I'm trying to install VirtualBox on the Windows, the Surface Pro, and I found an OVA I can use that gives me everything I need, and but it's 7.6 GB. So I finally got it downloaded, but I got it downloaded on the Citrix box. Now I'm thinking, how in the hell am I going to get it to my Surface Pro? like how do you get there from here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So as we're getting more people now connected. Hopefully you guys got a chance to go to the Mouse virtual event last week,
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago. What was your
I
thoughts
missed a
on it?
couple.
Yeah.
I missed a couple early presentations, so I'd like to see those online or something. I mean,
You can
you
pull down
save them, or
you can see the PDF files. We did not. We were told that we could not record for some reason. I'm not sure, but so but we did provide the PDF files. So. Now, on the other hand, I'm doing for you guys who don't know, we had a lot of sessions that I had to turn down. I couldn't do. We only had 6 or 12 slots, and I must have got somewhere in the area of around 50 to 60 good presentations. You know, and I had to whittle it down to 12. You know, and it was not easy to do. So what I ended up doing is I'm hosting a. If you guys remember the book Tuesdays with Maury from Mitch Albom, I'm doing a Mondays with Mouse webinar. So I've taken the next 12 that I would have put out there, and on Mondays at noon for free, I'm putting them out on you know, via webinar, and then also I am putting it into YouTube Live. So I don't know if you guys know that we have a YouTube channel. Did you guys know that? Okay.
What channel is it?
Well, let me pull it up. Now I'll share my screen here. Let me just get it there first.
So I had another question, but before I forget.
Yeah.
So like the Denver group or the Colorado group or whatever it is that you said was a good presentation, are they going to be online this year?
Yes, they are, but I think it's going to be virtual at this point. I'm not sure.
Right, which means I could go this year.
Yeah, right. Let me share my screen here. Come on. Okay. All right, do you guys see it now?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. So what I've been doing is those mouse Mondays with Mouse things. I've been actually recording them live to YouTube, so you could not only watch it on a webinar or come back and watch it at another time. So our first one was on Monday the 2nd, November 2nd. Peter Kletsky talked about developing UI applications. And then the second one, he did another one just yesterday called using the thick client to do application design. Pretty cool stuff, actually. I wish more applications were written like that. So I not only have the recording, but I also have the PDF file. I have it in 2 different places. So here's the channels where you can actually see the videos. And then I also record, by the way, all these Semop meetings as well. So you see the September one. I think I have an October one in there somewhere. Yeah, October. Here's October. Here's the June one. So you can see the replay of the Semop meetings. And then if you want to get for the mouse Mondays with Mouse, you can just go to it's mouse.us _ Mondays, mouse _ Mondays, mouse.pdf. Come on, mouse, move. Okay, there we go. So this has, so I have not only a place where you can register for the event, but I also have a place where you can actually see the video. So you can click on either one. So coming up, actually, have some great topics. On the 16th, Jim Sabensky from Chicago actually used Apex, machine learning, and geocoding for this last election.
Wow.
So it's like real data using Apex and machine learning to gather stats and information for, I think he's working for some office in Chicago. So this is actual real good data and real live data. So that's coming up next week on next Monday on the 16th. The following one is one if sort of where out kind of situation I was in. If you're looking for a DBA job, how do you interview? And it's changed a lot since my days of interviewing. So he's got a great presentation. I've already seen it already, and it's really, really good. I actually learned a few things there. So encourage you to go to that one. Again, if you can't make it, it's going to be on, they're all free, by the way. If you can't make it, they're going to be on the YouTube channel, the Semop channel. Then, yeah.
Well,
go on.
Oh, Semop YouTube. Okay.
Yep. And then about sequences, Chinmani is going to talk about some of the new stuff with sequences in Oracle at 19 and so on, the latest stuff. I saw this presentation. I thought it was really cool, which was, how do you migrate from Sybase to Oracle? Some tips and tricks for those folks migrating. I'm not sure how many are doing that, but it looked like a pretty good presentation. So if you guys can make that, that's a good one. And then Liron from Go to DBA is going to talk about showing some real life SQL tuning stuff going from 8 minutes to 8 seconds in under an hour. So he's got some good examples and some pretty good stuff. Then of course we know Rick, he's gonna be talking about the trace events on 10.4.4.6. Then last for the end of the year is Oracle 19 automatic indexes. So I just did it through the end of the year because I don't know if, if I could continue on with this amount of work to set all this up and get the speakers and stuff. Yeah.
December 28th?
Yeah. So it's every Monday from now till December 28th.
So that's in, but okay.
Yep.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah. So like I said, you can just
what time of day?
It's at noon, from 12 to 1. So on your lunch hour, kind of sit here and watch the stuff go on. So yeah, if you guys can make it, it'd be great. There's some good topics actually. That one from Peter Kletsky on using thick database principles in PL SQL was pretty awesome. How they, it all is about the design and stuff. And sure wish more applications were designed in that manner. It's just a nice way to do it. And then I think next week, seeing how using Apex and machine learning in this last campaign is going to be pretty interesting. So it's not really politics. It's just more or less how he used these things to get data that he needed. So I think one thing that he found is he did a trend on people's voting based on age, and he found a trend where if people get older, they change their they're more likely to change their actual political view. So so he's got some data behind that. Again, it's probably not I wouldn't say it was scientific, but it's enough for what he was doing it for. So anyway, regardless, it should be really, really good. So so that's that. Oh, I also have this. If you didn't get this, let me paste this URL in there, you guys, because it's not on the tab. When you go to mouse.us, it's not on the tab. So you kind of have to go searching for it. Lost my mouse. Where did it go?
I don't see it.
I know, I don't either.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Come on. Or you could also, I also have the same thing on my WordPress. So feel free to download, to watch the videos. Like I said, they were pretty, last couple were pretty good. So I'll do share. We're waiting for what's his name?
Alfredo?
Alfredo, yep. He, I talked to him earlier today.
I used to work with Alfredo.
Oh, great, great. He's a good guy. Over
Yeah.
at Break Parts or somewhere else?
I used to work for Tusk, and at that time he was with Pampered Chef, and Pampered Chef was one of our clients.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I'm kind of dating myself back to the mid 2000s, but that's where I collaborated with Alfredo.
Yeah.
Who had a Tusk poster on their wall?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That was the big thing at the conferences, is to go get a poster. Then it got so much that you couldn't even read the poster. It was like just totally
got busy.
Yeah, way too busy, you know. But that was the big thing there.
Yep. Got to get the poster.
Yep. So anything else going on with you guys while we're waiting?
I don't know if I met Scott before.
I'm actually from outside of the area. I saw that Alfredo was going to be giving the presentation, and I also wanted to get smarter about Apex, but I'm presently out in the Philadelphia area.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Speaking of Alfredo, he just joined, so there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, Alfredo, how are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Fantastic, fantastic.
Good.
I was just sharing my mouse with Mondays with Mouse stuff, and I was telling him about Jim Szubanski's, I can't pronounce his name, but Zuprinsky's presentation on elections and using Apex. So I know he spoke today for you guys, right?
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, tomorrow at noon.
So I said it should be, yeah. And so he's going to do our Mondays next week. So hopefully, he said it's really good. He came up with some pretty good data. So
what group is that tomorrow?
Chicago Oracle User Group, COUG.com or org?
US.
At US. Yeah.
That's all that was available.
Okay. I think the same thing happened with Mouse. We only had a couple available. And I think we have a friend of yours online too here, who's wanting to throw some tomatoes at you, he said.
Oh God.
No, I was just talking about our days when you were at Pampered Chef and I was at Tusk. This is Scott Lockhart.
Hey Scott, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Yeah, I saw that you're going to be giving the presentation. And I wanted to see you speak, and I also was way behind in getting smart on Apex, so I figured why not.
Yeah, I won't be doing a deep dive in Apex, but more of a what's possible and maybe how to convince the DBA who's against it. Because funny enough, like when I've given this talk on the EBS side of the house at like Collaborate, I always have a bunch of developers come up to me and say, yeah, well, our DBA won't install it. And I'm like, what? And they've always got these stories. And I always offer, have them call me, like, I want to understand why.
Yeah.
And I never could understand why, but.
Well, you know what DBA stands for, right?
Don't bother asking.
Don't bother
asking. Exactly.
What's the last word? Don't bother asking. Right. So, what we need is a presentation on how to install it.
Yeah, That's
We
the
can-
easy part.
Yeah,
Install.
that's actually the easy part. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will encourage you guys, if you don't have it even on your site, you can get that free cloud account. And I've been doing some of the, they have a bunch of lessons, or I don't know what you want to call them.
Like a
tutorials.
tutorial?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
tutorials.
Lab.
And so you can set up a database, you can install, it actually comes with Apex, and then you can actually do some Apex screens. It'll actually, really easy to do. And then when you're done, you just delete it and you don't get charged. It's a, you know, it's a pretty cool thing. So really encourage you guys to get that cloud account, that free one anyway, and you know, go from
Yeah,
there.
if you go to YouTube, the Chicago Oracle Users Group, we set up a channel for our 20 weeks of seminars or webinars. So the one I actually did one for our group 2 weeks ago, which was on the free cloud tier. So exactly what Mike is talking about, I talk about Apex, and I actually do demo via screenshots of, you know, how easy it is to set applications up and even get using free data. You don't even need data because there's so many publicly available APIs. You can just pull data in. So I demonstrate all that. If you want to go look at the
Cool.
recording, it's out there. So it's pretty neat. I mean,
Could you paste the URL for your group in the
Yeah.
chat? In the meantime,
Yeah.
I'm going to make you co-presenter, co-host, I should say. And then feel free to share your screen,
okay.
and then we can get started.
Thank you.
There you go. Actually, Alfredo gave me the idea for doing these webinars on Monday, and so I thank him. What's that phrase? Imitation is the sincerest form of
Yeah.
flattery. So
Yeah, that
thank
wasn't my idea. I mean, I'm
Okay.
just copying everybody else, right? I
Yeah,
mean, everybody's
yeah.
doing this.
Yeah.
So I saw a bunch of people starting this up back in, I don't know, it was probably like April when all this COVID stuff came down.
Yeah. Well, it's working good for me. I mean, I as I mentioned, I had quite a few speakers lined up that I couldn't fit into my my normal thing. So
That's a good problem to have.
yeah, yeah. So I said, well, why don't I just do one of these free things on Monday, and so it's working. Okay. Are you ready to go there, Alfredo?
I'm ready whenever you want me to start.
Okay. Make sure it is recording. So why don't you start? Go ahead. And
Okay, you can see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. I just see your name.
Oh, I thought I had the screen up. It said share screen. Let's try it again. How about now?
There you go.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike and company, for having me come speak to you guys tonight on Apex and the modern DBA, a little twist, as I like to put it, a match made in heaven. So for those who don't know who I am, as Mike said, my name's Alfredo Abate, and I am just a DBA, I'll say, just like probably most or some of you on the call. That's what I've been doing since the late 90s. Started on version 7.3.4, got into the Oracle e-business suite arena around 2006, and president of the Chicago Oracle Users Group, COUG. So as Mike said, we're having a 20 and 20. We only have, so it's 20 weeks of seminars. It's every Wednesday at noon, but we have just 2 weeks left. I can't believe 20 weeks went by so quickly, but you can catch our recordings. I put the link in the chat window for you. I'm also president of the Real Application Cluster Special Interest Group, which has not seen a whole lot of activity lately. We're actually getting ready to rebrand as the MAA because everything is maximum availability architecture, which RAC kind of falls under that. So that's coming soon. We actually have somebody working on a website for that. So hopefully we'll start to see a lot of activity around those topics, which I think is very exciting. So I was designated with the Oracle ACE for my contributions to the Oracle community. I do not consider myself any sort of expert, so I hope you're not expecting anything of that sort today. I have an Oracle blog, which I have not blogged in a while, and you can connect with me on Twitter. The other thing I'd mention is, so I was born in Milan, Italy. I actually came to the United States when I was very small, or very young, I should say. And I love music. And that picture there at the bottom right is supposed to be a vinyl. I actually still listen to and collect vinyl, if anybody remembers what those are, which I'm sure some of you do. Some people say I have way too many. All I'm going to say is that I'm in the 4 digits, but nothing will top meeting a guy who said he had almost 20,000 records. And to top it off, he was on the top floor of an apartment.
Oh.
So I tried to do the math real quick, knowing what an average LP weighs, that's like over 10,000 pounds. I'd hate to be the resident living underneath that guy. Anyway, let's get started. So what is a modern DBA? What do you think of when you hear this? Is it this? Modern DBA dressed for GQ or Cosmo with all the latest tech devices? Not what I really think of as a modern DBA. It's not about a look, but an attitude of how we can approach our day-to-day problems. And let's take a second and define the word modern based on the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. So involving recent techniques, methods, or ideas. So what is an example of modern outside of the DBA world? Would you consider this a definition of modern? Probably not. How about this? The Mercedes-Benz Vision EQS concept vehicle. Dual electric motor with an estimated range of 400 miles and able to charge the battery to 80% in 20 minutes. Yeah, that's pretty modern, maybe even a little futuristic. But living in Chicago, I would be foolish not to use an opportunity to bring up the amazing modern architecture that we have in our city. And while we have a wonderful mix of different architectural styles, there's one in particular that cannot be ignored. And that is Mr. Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. So if we take just a moment to look at probably the most famous modern architect that the city's had, he was intrigued by the emerging technologies of the day, which was mostly concrete, glass, and steel in his revolutionary creations. And he strove towards an architecture with a minimal framework of structural order balanced against implied freedom of unobstructed, free-flowing open space. And so he called his buildings skin and bones. And so if you take a look for a second at the 860, 880 Lakeshore Drive apartments that were built in 1949, although they don't appear very radical today, they revolutionized, urban residential architecture with their minimalist glass and steel appearance and the exposure of the building structure. Again, he was making use of modern materials such as industrial steel and plate glass. And then there's SR Crown Hall, which is the home of the College of Architecture at the Illinois Institute of Technology, which he was the head of this department, was able to design this building in 1956. And some consider this his masterpiece and one of the most architecturally important buildings of the 20th century for the modernist movement. And again, he refined the approach of using steel and glass in a way that was never used before. Lastly, the Farnsworth House in Plano, Illinois. It was designed for Dr. Edith Farnsworth, a prominent Chicago nephrologist. It's just a 1,500 square foot, one-room retreat in a rural area of Illinois. Again, materials include steel, natural stone, and glass. Lots of natural light, but at nighttime, quite interesting, I read that when you turn all the lights on, it's full of bugs up against the glass. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So if you look at, Mies was intrigued with modern materials of the day, concrete, steel, glass, kind of strove towards this architecture with a minimal framework, structural order. And he called his buildings skin and bones architecture. And he's also attributed with this quote of less is more. As we saw with his designs, I would agree, yeah, that less is more. And so at this point, you guys are all probably thinking, so what? What does this have to do with being a modern DBA? Well, if Apex is your modern material, right, and install your minimal framework with only skin and bones, right, it's a very powerful tool. And less is more because it's a low-code development platform. So you can create more applications in less time. And when you think about what are some other modern DBA techniques, right? For those of us that have been DBAs for a while, we probably have done a lot of scripting and automating, at least really good and lazy ones, right? So why repeat the same task manually? So, that's why there's things like Ansible that can help you in that regard. And, we each have our own methods. So what are these technologies and how can you exploit them in your organization's environment? So look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I modern enough? Am I taking a look at the latest techniques, methods, ideas that are available to me? Or maybe you're just wondering, am I as cute as this little monkey? I'll let you be the judge of that. Which is Oracle Apex, the discussion for today. And let's see how it could potentially catapult you and your organization into the stratosphere while giving you the title of a modern DBA. So the simplicity of Apex is amazing. I constantly see presentations, especially at Collaborate, and I just hear stories all the time of business analysts and business super users creating Apex applications with ease, and that's some of them turning into full-time Apex developers. Since I'm able to hear you guys, how many of you are using Apex? Anybody?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, my last client site was using it, but I didn't really have any exposure to it. So that's why I'm trying to play catch up.
Okay, that's good. And so Apex is considered a rapid application development software, RAD. And RAD was popularized by this British information technology consultant in the 90s. He popularized this. And this guy, James Martin, was mostly known for some computer-aided software design for engineering. Strangely enough, he died in 2013 on his own private island in Bermuda. So he must have done really well with his IT career. But the point is, RAD allows for prototyping and iterative development. So while this sometimes compromises in functionality, if you're used to more of a waterfall type of approach, in turn, you exchange that for enabling faster development time, right? And as we all know, speed and efficiency is the name of the game for organizations, as most often we're trying to do more with less resources, especially, unfortunately, human resources. And all of this is to, of course, beat the competitor and make more profits. So the nice thing about Apex is you only need a web browser to develop. So not like some of the other development toolkits. So myself, coming from an EBS background, I sometimes have to help or see developers struggling trying to install fairly heavy tool sets like forms and reports, BI Publisher, Workflow Builder. And then if they have to look at the data, they're going to need the Oracle client, SQL Developer, Toad. With Apex, you really don't need any of those. SQL Developer or Toad obviously will, those are nice to haves, but you really can do everything you need to do inside of the web browser. And it's a low-code application development. So you focus on building the application versus learning all kinds of new web application technologies, right? So the only languages you really need are SQL and a little bit of PL/SQL. And after a few weeks of working inside of Apex, you'll be pretty amazed at how quickly you're starting to understand the navigation and how to enable and disable certain features. And it has some really amazing built-in wizard-driven tools with something as simple as like an Excel spreadsheet. You can build a pretty impressive starter application. And you can deploy something that's secure. Since Oracle Apex resides inside the Oracle database, which is very secure if you're following typical database security protocols, there should be no reason to worry about how secure it's going to be. Of course, there's a middle tier involved with Apex, whether you're using Tomcat, which is probably the majority of folks, or even the built-in Jetty web application server that comes with ORDS. You should follow the middle tier guidelines, for securing that, especially if you're planning to expose any of these applications externally. So things like, DMZ would definitely be needed. And you have to be sure you're not creating your applications that would allow for things like SQL injection or cross-site scripting, but there's tools that can help you actually make sure that your application is validated against things of that nature. So it runs in a database. So that means it can scale with the database. So for those that are using Exadata or RAC or in-memory options, you can take advantage of all those technologies within Apex. So for example, you could design a report or a chart that queries directly from an in-memory column store table. And as we mentioned a little bit ago, Apex will allow for rapid development of applications. How rapid? Well, it depends. I mean, I've done very simple POCs in a matter of 10 minutes or less. And it's fully supported by Oracle. And we'll take a look at that a little bit later as well, as long as you've paid for your Oracle database license, or if you're using one of the free options such as 18C Express or the Oracle Cloud free tier. So I look at it as this makes our IT staff and our business users happier because our developers love working with Apex. And we only really have one developer. I will be clear about that because we have a fairly small IT team. And it's easier for them to use versus traditional methods. They're pleased with the feedback that they receive from the business because they're getting things done quicker and the businesses love that. And if they ask for a little change, it's not very difficult to make that change because of the iterative process that you can do with Apex. And our business users extremely happy because they're getting their enhancements requests quicker. So the applications not only work well, but they look really good too. And the best part that I think is that it's free. And I know some of you are probably scoffing on the other end and thinking, well, you got to pay for the database license. That's not free and it's expensive as hell probably. But if you're an Oracle DBA, whoever you work for has hopefully already paid for the cost of your database licenses. And secondly, even if you don't own the Oracle database, there are other ways to try and even use Apex inside of your organization. So as I mentioned a second ago, you could use the 18C Express edition with the limitations that are built in, or you can even go to apex.oracle.com for your free workspace, or you can try the cloud free tier and spin up an ATP or an ADW database. So now some of you might be thinking, well, what exactly can we do with Apex? What are some of these benefits? And so data entry or lookup forms, again, coming from a e-business suite background, where we've used it to replace customizations that we normally would have done in Oracle Forms or Oracle Application Framework, OAF. Interactive reports is really nice because it gives the end user additional built-in functionality such as charting, grouping, to manipulate the data. And the developer didn't have to code for any of this. It's all built into native Apex, which is kind of nice. And create beautiful and intuitive dashboards. And we'll take a look at a couple examples of that from the company I work for in a few slides that are coming up. Eliminate Excel spreadsheets and Access database, the bane of IT's existence. And power users are usually the worst offenders of Excel and Access databases. Think about, at least for us, all the spreadsheets sitting on network drives or SharePoint, or the hidden mission critical access application databases, right? We had an instance about a year ago where we found out that someone in our engineering department was a little tech savvy and decided to build this access database that was going to be used amongst the engineers, and it was sitting out on the network drive. And guess what? They were having all kinds of access issues with locking. And at one point, when the network share must have went down, they lost some data. This is a perfect example where if it's that critical that you can't live without it, and put it in something that's more secure and scalable, like Apex. Convert it there. You know, it's accessible by everyone. You get all the inherent locking abilities that the Oracle database gives you. It's secure, and it's, of course, it's backed up by your DBA, and it's a real, true single source of truth. And so I always say, if you're drowning in spreadsheets, even though it's the #1 BI tool, Apex can be the spreadsheet killer. Now, that doesn't mean spreadsheets are going away. They'll never go away, because this is the quickest way for sometimes for finance folks or other departments to be able to mock up data and do their calculations quickly. But for some of those mission critical ones, especially if you're passing around data that might be financially related numbers that may not be accurate, wouldn't you rather have a single source of truth for that? I would. And so now we'll go with the typical reasons I've heard given why not to install Apex. You know, my DBA won't install it. We've tried asking him or her, and they just won't do it. They complain it's one more thing they have to manage. A lot of times it's the you know, the assumption that there's going to be some performance issues. You know, the overhead that Apex will add is going to kill my server and cause performance issues. We don't want this stuff running in the database. Well, that's not true. So Apex, I've never seen it add barely any overhead. It's really as fast as the underlying SQL that it's executing that's built into the application. So if you've got views or queries that you've used to pull up data and say like Toad or SQL Developer, and you want to turn those into a application in Apex, as long as those are quick, Apex is quick. And true story, all of the performance issues that I found in we're going on, I think 5 years now of using Apex at our organization. They've all been self-induced poor performing SQL statements, you know, and a lot of times they're not caught in the beginning because they're custom tables. And as the data gets loaded, oh, they forgot an index. You know, they were not doing their join conditions properly or whatever it may be. And it ran quick when there was no data in the tables, but then, or very little data. And then all of a sudden, once we fix that stuff, it's quick again. Security. You know, you hear it could cause severe security issues in my database. Well, Apex allows you to have a lot of sophisticated authentication and authorization controls that you can put in place. So not only can you guard it against who can get in, but you can also, once you get in, they can control the permissions down to a button to who can see what data. So if you have an application that, say, you know, finance manager has or something along those lines, and maybe they're allowed to modify certain data, maybe the clerk that works in finance only should be able to read it. Well, you can actually control all of that inside of there. You do have to make sure that your middle tier has, again, proper security in place as you would with any middle tier server. But as far as Apex goes, it's very robust. And support. The other one I hear is it's a free tool from Oracle. They're not going to support us. It's not true. Apex is fully supported by Oracle. If you've ever looked closely at an SR, you can actually see that you can log an Apex SR at any time and they'll support you. So with that, I say, don't be the typical DBA. As Scott said before, don't bother asking. You know, when I was a young rookie DBA, I used to be kind of a no person. Actually kind of ashamed of it now because a developer would stop by and ask to try some feature. And, you know, the conversation would be something like, hey, Alfredo, it says here we can create a materialized view and it'll allow us to, you know, that can hide the complex joins and quickly provide results to our users. And my first reaction was, no, we're not going to do that. You know, it's going to cause performance issues, or who's going to maintain the materialized view log or something along those lines, right? But just kind of nothing to substantiate my claims. I didn't actually look, you know, what they were trying to do or run a test in a non-production environment to help them, you know. And as I got a little older and a little wiser, I quickly realized that my attitude was really providing a huge disservice to my team members, and perhaps feeling a little insecure that maybe it wasn't me that came up with the solution, but it was some developer. God forbid the developer comes up with something. You know, we can't know everything as DBAs. So it's okay for other people to recommend suggestions. So instead, you know, sit down together, work with them on how to best exploit those features of the database. and solve the business problem at hand. You know, at the end of the day, same team. And so at this point, you have two options. If you're contemplating Apex, you're either going to install it or you're going to do nothing. I hope you install it. And if you want to get it installed, you might think, well, how do we get started? And so I'll share with you the story of how we got started, which was a basic proof of concept. So what we did about, like I said, it was about 5 years ago. Myself and a technical functional analyst, she's the finance person that works with the finance users. Every month, a couple times a month, she was manually running this query to get business users' data. And then she would provide it to them in a spreadsheet. Of course, it's never up to date. And it wasn't a big deal because it was just, you know, it was a couple times a month. It took her like 5 minutes. And we didn't want to bother with putting a ticket in and having a developer create a proper Oracle e-business suite report. So she just kept doing this. And we were talking about Apex. And we thought, you know, why aren't we using something simpler like this? And so we took her query and we created a view, and then we exposed that view inside of Apex. And it looked something like this. It is this actually. So this is what's called a supplier list. It's an interactive report. I've obviously obfuscated some of the data because it's the real deal. It's a very simple report. This is about as simple as you can get with Apex, okay? Converting a query into an interactive report like this. But it got rid of her having to do the manual work, right? Which wasn't a whole lot, but you know, 20 minutes a month or whatever. But now the user can go in, run it themselves. It's up to date because it's coming right out of our transactional e-business suite database, and doesn't have to worry about bugging us and putting a ticket in and everything. And the nice part is, because it's an interactive report, they've got the ability to do all kinds of stuff with the data. So if you want to do things like format and put, let's say, a control break, and maybe control break by supplier name, you'll see that the report is now split up by supplier names. You can also go in and create a chart. And in this case, we'll just create a simple bar chart and we'll do a count of the different payment methods. Boom, done. They were able to get a simple a chart that shows them, you know, which payment methods are used most heavily. And so I'll just go back 1 second here. So any of these options on this actions, as a developer, you can turn them on or off. If you don't want them to do this stuff for some reason, group by, or you know, format the data or whatever it may be, you can turn any of this stuff on or off, which is really nice. And it's just, it's really simple. And so even after you do all this work and give the users an interactive report, they're of course going to say, but I'd like my data in Excel. Because they're going to do something above and beyond, or maybe they're going to save it somewhere, I don't know. But you can do that. You can save it in Excel or as HTML, or send it to yourself in an email, or even save it as a PDF. You can also, with the email, you can set up a subscription and send the report out, put via email. So we have users that are doing that on some of our other reports. And you know, they've got one that comes out a couple times a day, it gets in their email box, they just open it up and they look at it. That way they don't have to necessarily be in Apex and run it. And that's how they choose to do it, which is perfectly okay. No performance issues either, which is nice. So now I'll show you a couple of examples that are from Break Parts at the company I work for. And so this is a customer service dashboard used heavily by not only customer service, but many other departments. And it shows, you know, things like volume of orders and their values. Obviously, it's obfuscated again because of the sensitive nature of the data. And each of these charts has an underlying interactive report. So you can click on them and drill right down and look at the data. And because they're interactive reports, again, they can slice and dice the data any way they want to, even create new charts off of that data if they want to. And scenes. So some of these queries, maybe they take 5, 10, 20 seconds. We refresh them on a periodic basis. Some of them are every 30 minutes, some of them are every hour. And that's acceptable to have a little bit of that lag because it gives them, 99% of the truth that they're looking for. So that's like one method you could use materialized views to kind of hide queries that might be a little bit slower. And in this case, because each one of these tiles is a query, as you make a dashboard larger and have more tiles, you're going to have more queries that could potentially slow down how quickly the screen refreshes, which doesn't help the user experience. So yeah, like this is an example of the drill down. It's our EDI daily report. They can drill down and take a look at that stuff. And they can also access the reports directly from a drop-down menu. Some of the reports are not necessarily a chart. They're just a report because they don't need a chart, or maybe a chart wasn't available to be created. This particular screen is something that it's just a simple card list dashboards, but it allows our warehouse work leaders to see the information that they need. So at the very top left, they can pick the distribution center that they're at, and immediately the tiles will refresh and they can get an update on individual items like replenishment, put away, cycle counts, outbound tasks, etc. And it gives them a very clear picture of where things are at. Each one of these is drill down capabilities. So it's nice for them to be able to get to the data in a more granular fashion. And so one thing I want to mention is the Apex uses this universal theme, which is very responsive. So what that means is that when you switch the application to go to a tablet or a cell phone, it'll automatically respond to that device and fit the application to that screen. So on the right there is what the work leaders who are using these like highly rugged iPads out in the warehouse, that's kind of like what they're seeing. So this is more of a browser view. And then this screen is more of what they would see on their tablets. And on the left is kind of an example of what you would see if you went down to a cell phone. But it just gives you an idea that if you start exposing your application to the outside world, everybody's on all kinds of different devices, Chromebooks, laptops. Some people have 40-inch widescreen gaming monitors, etc. It'll fit the screen appropriately. And there's no extra coding for that. It's built in automatically. And so I'm sure some of you are wondering, well, what about me? So even for the DBA, you can also leverage Apex for your own benefit. And, as a DBA, we have a collection of scripts to check for all kinds of different, free space information, metrics of different sorts. Wouldn't it be nice to have a GUI interface to be able to quickly pull up data in a visually pleasing manner? And I'm sure some of you are probably thinking, well, yeah, isn't that Enterprise Manager? Yes, but I think, for those that are been around for a while, Enterprise Manager doesn't cover everything. You've got some of your own homegrown scripts. And for myself personally, again, coming from a EBS background, I found that even inside of Oracle Application Manager, OAM, there's some gaps between that and Enterprise Manager. So I just built an example of what is possible. So here's like an EBS administrator dashboard that I created. Nothing super complicated here. So on the top left corner there is the number of concurrent request statuses, and I can drill down into those. And then on the right there is just how many concurrent requests per day. You'll see it's flat because I pulled this out of our non-production environment. So obviously if I was in prod, it would look a lot different than this. And then the one on the bottom left is we use integrated SOA gateway, which allows us to expose web services within eBusiness Suite. And we use that with our e-commerce quite heavily. And so we wanted a way to be able to see, are we having any issues with the maximum amount of response time coming back from these web services? Because they're all PL SQL packages behind the scenes. And so while we have alerts that tell us, hey, something hit a certain threshold, it's nice to see what the trend kind of looks like. And we're able to use this and again, drill down, which I'll show you in another screen or two, some additional drill through capability using a modal dialog box. And then on the bottom right, there is just, open workflow notification. How many open workflow notification? That's extremely high on purpose. I was making sure that my little gauge actually worked. I would hope that nobody ever had 3.6 million open workflow notifications, but it was just to make sure that my gauge would actually work properly. So I fudged that a little bit and it's working. And so as you can see here, this is the concurrent request search. So if you're used to eBusiness Suite, we search concurrent requests from the forms, but you can do it right through here. I have not added anything yet to pull up log files or output files. I'm not even sure if that capability is available, but it gives me a quick idea of what's going on. And again, I can create different charts than the original one that I had on my dashboard because I can slice and dice the data any way I want. And so this is the SOA logs, which I personally like this one because I use it quite a bit. It allows me to look at if the status of the request or the response is in this case, it's successful because we didn't have any errors when I ran this. But if it was, it allows me to drill down and open up the, like I said, a modal dialog box so that I can actually see the SOA payload, and being that this is I think it's a CLOB field inside of Oracle. It's not the easiest to open. I mean, it's easy to open with Toad, but I have to drill down with several queries or extra steps, where in this case, I can just say, I can go to the top of this interactive report and say, show me all the errors, and then I'm going to go right inside of there. I mean, it's very quick compared to running scripts one by one. So just an example of what is possible. I'm sure you could probably come up with lots of other examples. But I will say for us, Apex has changed our organization. I feel that anybody that introduces it, even if it's just for yourself, it will make an impact on how you do things, and also give you a new skill set. But you really will wonder, how have you gotten things done prior to having it installed? I mean, our users love it. And in meetings now, and I'm not normally involved with meetings with our business users, but I hear this from our analysts that they now say, hey, do you think we can put this in Apex? I mean, they're prompting us because they love it so much. So that I think that just speaks to the power of it. And again, it will empower others so that, teammates have a feeling of empowerment, your IT teammates. It gives developers a brand new toolkit. But it also adds to the DBA skills, I feel, not only from the administrative standpoint, because you're going to have to install it and maintain it. You're going to have to work with ORDs because that's the Apex listener. And you're going to have to probably play around with Tomcat. So I don't think that's a bad thing to add to our tool belt as a database administrator. And so the question is, are you ready to be a modern DBA? I think if once you get it installed one day, shortly after it's been installed at your organization, you might overhear someone say, hey, there's that DBA. He or she is so modern. Well, maybe not, but. So then I say, will you choose wisely? Which path will you choose? Will you give Apex a chance? And don't be the only DBA not installing Oracle Apex. And if you only really remember 3 things today, the 3 things I'm going to ask you to remember is Oracle Apex is free. You can start with a very, very simple POC. It'll help you as well as developers. And this counts towards skill sets that are not only on premises, but in the cloud. It's the same. The skill sets, I mean, there's a little bit of a difference in the cloud, but it translates. It goes back and forth very easily. And of course, presentations like these are always, the scratching the surface. We can never cover everything that we want in a 40-minute or 45-minute session. And we talked at the beginning a little bit before we started about where can you learn more. So the free workspace is a great spot if you just want something that you don't have to maintain, like an Oracle free tier account. You can just log in through a browser, do some stuff, go back to it later. Normally, I forgot if it's like 3 months of inactivity, then you'll start getting emails from Oracle saying, hey, we're going to get rid of your workspace. The Oracle Apex curriculum is fantastic. I went through it myself over the summer. It took, I want to say it's between 12 to 16 hours of examples that you actually do hands-on. They're hands-on labs. They're awesome. By the time you're done, you'll be surprised at what did I just do? Some pretty cool stuff. highly recommend that. Of course, the official Oracle Apex documentation has everything you'll ever need. And then if you want to download and install Oracle Database 18c Express Edition and then install Apex and ORDS on your desktop, if you want to be a little more adventurous, you can do that. I do have a white paper that I had written that shows how to install this that I think is probably still valid for these versions. It's from about 2 years ago. If anybody's interested in that, you're more than welcome to email me and I would be happy to share that with you.
Actually, that would be pretty good.
Yeah.
I shared.
Mike? You still there?
I'm still here.
Oh,
We lost Mike.
your audio cut out, Mike. Not sure if you can hear us.
Mike, are you on mute? No, he was talking. He wouldn't mute himself in the middle.
Yeah, he was talking and it was just gone. Well, while we're waiting for Mike to come back, does anybody have any questions, comments?
So I've got and I think you may have covered it with your last slide, but if it's just me and I'm an Oracle DBA and I want to install Apex, what do should I watch your demo first and then come back and ask questions, or your white paper?
If you want to, yeah, I would say look at the white paper. That's like the cut and dry version of the installation. I mean, it just gets right to the point to install it on your machine. There are
You guys hear
probably
me now?
videos out there. Yeah, there you are.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go on. Finish. Sorry.
Of course, you know, everybody knows the great Oracle base, Tim Hall, it's his website. I mean, if you're ever looking for anything to install or anything about any feature, it seems like his site is usually the one that we typically land on because he's done such a great job. So there's some pointers there that he's got that you could use as well.
Tim Hall?
Tim Hall. Yeah, I mean, it's Oracle base. Have you landed on the Oracle base website, oracle-base.com? I mean, everybody lands on there. He's always in like the top 3 or 4 of, if it's not Don Burleson's site, it's his site. So.
I pasted in the chat window, number one, where you can get this presentation at. I did that. And then the other thing is I pasted in there, there's some hands-on labs that you can download. It's a zip file, and it kind of walks you through just doing a project thing. And if I could give anybody some advice, what I did is I took a spreadsheet that we use all the time, and you can load that into Apex. It's very simple. And from there, I was able to manipulate the data, and it was a very simple thing. All you had to do is just, I wasn't even using a table. I was just taking kind of it created a table after, but just took a spreadsheet that we use all the time. And then with Apex, I was able to kind of manipulate it to, show graphs and stuff like that. You can make the argument, Excel does that as well. But now that it was in a table, I could do more historical things and things of that nature. So just take a simple spreadsheet that you use all the time, load it up into Apex, and see what you can do with Apex with it. And then you can kind of go from there.
Yep. Absolutely. That's a good suggestion, Mike.
Let me share. I'm going to share my screen, if you don't mind, real quick here.
Yeah, go ahead. Let me stop share.
Yeah. Where is it? Can you guys see it? This is a hands-on lab part.
Yep.
And so basically, you can either do this with VirtualBox. You can download the VirtualBox if you like, and then you can download these zip files. But you don't have to do that. You can actually use the zip files in the cloud as well if you want to. I mean, it's your call there. But it kind of gives you a whole bunch of hands-on labs that you can actually do yourself. Like Alfredo said, I mean, it's just a matter of starting.
Yeah. And I don't know, this one might even be different than the curriculum that I just mentioned. It might,
You know what? I think it is, because I went to your curriculum one that you're talking about, and I can't find it. So I think you just showed the website, but I couldn't remember what the website was. But this is another site. The point. Yeah. So
they have some stuff that's out there that's if you know the learning library that Oracle has.
Yeah.
It seems like the Apex stuff has kind of not been updated on there, because I went there first like 2 years ago because I was like, I need to learn more Apex hands-on. And when I got in there, like some of their hands-on labs were like 3.2, Apex 3.2 version, which is like, it's like 10, 11 years old.
Oh, yeah.
So I think they kind of deviated away from updating the learning library, and they've got their own kind
That
of
could be.
track.
Yeah.
So, but I think what you have is more up to date, Mike, and then the curriculum.
Yeah.
Let me see if the curriculum comes up.
The other thing I'd mention is you mentioned from the DBA perspective, prior to my quick departure from my previous employer, I was developing Apex against OEM data. And what I ended up doing is created another schema. And then I was doing materialized views on data that I wanted from OEM. And and what I wanted to show was, like, we supported many customers. So I wanted to show data usage by customer. We did have a way to, we used one of the fields to market, but the point was I was starting to do that, and I wish I would have saved some of the screens and stuff, but it works real well with OEM data. So sometimes OEM data is very, I say, you get a lot of data, but sometimes you I don't know how to put it. Sometimes it doesn't tell you everything you need to know. So by creating a separate schema, doing the materialized views, it was really one way to do a lot of things. But again, I was cut short before I could finish the work. So I'm hoping to finish that up on my next company here. But you can use it on OEM data as well. So like I said, I use materialized views. You can use regular views if you like. It's really your call. Yeah, Apex is pretty good, and it's you can use it a lot for a lot of different things.
Yeah, and the community around, I mean, so I started using Apex back, Scott, I don't know, from the Pampered Chef days. We had installed, when it was still HTML-DB, we actually first installed it to, if you guys have ever used Toad, it seems like, especially when we were at Pampered Chef, it's like every time we added developers, they'd have to give you a whole new license key. And you got to remember that license key goes with this X number of, and it got to a point where I was like, why do we have so many license keys? And we got to remember, the exact organization name that they gave you. So we eventually created an Apex app, and that's how we maintained it. That was my first jump into the Apex world back when it was HTML-DB.
Right.
And from there, it ended up landing. It was in our data warehouse. It was stored in there, and it ended up. In fact, since I've left there almost 8 years ago now, they are using it heavily now with their data warehouse reporting. Last week for our COUG 20 and 20, we had Michelle Hardwick. So she showed what they did with Apex she works for Salt Lake Community College. So they were tasked with putting a dashboard together for all the teachers, like 3,000 plus faculty members. Well, they couldn't use their current BI solution, which was like Cognos, because the licenses would have been astronomical in price. They did it all in Apex for free. They already owned the Oracle database. And so, if you go back and just look at some of the screenshots from the video from that, it's just amazing that they were able to do this with just a few folks on their team. and save the community college how much money. And you should see the beautiful work that they did. I mean, really, compared to the dashboards that I showed you, mine were very basic. These are like outstanding.
Yeah, I attended that last week, and she was talking about how some teachers were kind of against it at first, didn't really want to use it. And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
once they got to see it, they were actually using it quite a bit. And then they were finding anomalies in the data, because now what this was doing was actually showing data, and they were finding out, like, wait a minute, this data, what we thought it meant doesn't mean what we thought it originally meant. Like she was talking about, what was it, grades, and forgot the exact topic, but she was showing how describing how the data was actually showing some anomalies that they didn't understand before.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite interesting to see, like, depending on the type of test the teacher gave, like the fluctuation in grades between students, and what does that mean? Like Mike is saying, is it the test was too hard, or something she or he didn't teach something properly during the semester? I mean, it's really nice analysis,
Yep, she did a great job. And then it made me feel good when she said that she couldn't use views, or accessing the actual table was not working. So when she said she did materialized views, I go, oh, I'm so glad I was on the right track. Because, I didn't know at first if I should go with that route, but it sounded like that's what she did as well. She used materialized views. So
yeah,
if you have a lot of data,
it's good and bad.
Yeah,
there's a good and a bad side to it. So for us, the bad side that I see with materialized views is if the query doesn't come back within a couple seconds, the developer knows, okay, this is not going to work for us. So they automatically, instead of going and looking and see, can I really tune this any further? Oh, let's create a materialized view, and then let's do something crazy like refresh it every 15 minutes. And now you got all these materialized views refreshing.
Right.
That could bring your system down too. So you got to be careful.
Yeah, in her case, she was using it because she had to join all these tables, and it was just taking forever. But you're right. She, I don't know if they had time to tune it. You don't know the whole
and sometimes
story.
You can't. You're right. I mean, sometimes.
But and especially like in OEM, a lot of times you can't really change the tables. You're kind of stuck with what they give you.
Yeah.
So using the materialized views in my case, and I only uploaded every hour. I wasn't doing it every 15 minutes or anything. No, I'm sorry, every 6 hours. I wasn't doing it every hour, but every 6 hours. So it was not like it was big taxing, but you may be faced with that. I mean, you just have to again, I think what Alfredo and I are saying is load it up, check it out, and play with it. There's a lot of different avenues to do this with.
Yep.
And I want to compliment you, by the way, on your presentation. Alfredo and I went to a thing I put on by Connor McDonald, I think, about doing presentations, and I really like your style. I like the way you did the presentation. So it's independent of the content.
Because I ripped it off from Connor. No, so I mean, really, what the gist of that, just for some context, I mean, it's really about. I try to get away, unless it's like a deep technical. Try to get away from putting too much stuff on the screen, because if you're sitting there reading the screen, then you're not going to hear what I'm saying. So more of that and more visual images, that's what I'm trying to strive for. But it's hard because being tech people, like, I want to go back and look at the presentation and go, okay, how did he do that query? Or what did he mean here? And it's hard to get away from that, especially when you're doing more technical stuff.
Right. Well, you did very well. You had like one sentence per slide. So it was very good. So,
well, thanks. So there's one question here I see. Are there any limitations with Apex? I guess it depends. I'm not sure in what context.
Yeah, I don't know. You guys can unmute if you want, large ERP, if you want. Feel free to unmute your thing.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is, you got to be careful because, before we started with Apex, if someone would have came to me and said, yeah, we're going to run all these dashboards and queries and reports and give it all to the user, I would have said, what the hell? That's why we got the data warehouse. Don't do that here. So my only hesitation is be careful, like what you wish for, because like it has taken off at our company. I mean, we've got hundreds of pages of Apex applications now, and it's mission critical now. Like if it's down, like our receiving, we did something in the receiving where they were like, we were getting returns, right? Because we're automotive manufacturing. So these parts stores can return their parts anytime and get a credit. So they were sitting there with pallets of these goods, and they'd have to sit there and go, okay, this is part XYZ, go look it up in Oracle. So we automated the whole thing, like the efficiencies through the roof. If that app goes down, they can't do anything. It's a showstopper, right? So I guess what I'm getting at is be careful what you wish for from a large ERP reporting standpoint, and make sure that your queries are efficient. It all goes back to that. And if they can't be efficient, then you have to use a materialized view. Be careful at the interval that you're refreshing. A lot of times I find with a lot of these users, if the data is a couple of hours old, they don't need it really for real time. So
What
be the only
you're
thing.
saying is no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah, there's some of that too. There's some of that.
It's a good problem to have, because people are, now that people are actually using your data and stuff. But Alfredo's point into getting back to what Michelle had mentioned last week was that they had some queries that were just humongous and it were just killing the database. So I think that's your limitation actually in any application you design, whether it's reporting or you just test your queries out before you put it in there. Know your data, I guess.
I was in a presentation. So I sat in a presentation a few years ago where somebody had a list of limitations, like how many rows you could show on a screen, or I don't know what it was, but
yeah,
there is a list somewhere.
There is.
Oh, okay.
There definitely is. And that's what I was wondering, if that's the other thing he was asking, because I don't know off the top of my head what that would be. But yeah, I'm sure there's things of that nature. I mean, you can only fit so much, like you're saying, data, things of that nature. But
yeah, I don't know if it's really meant to, especially if you already have a Cognos or something like that. I don't know if it's there to replace that per se. But this certainly can be used for your DBA stuff for sure. I mean, like Alfredo showed some of the kind of reports that he did, and show space reports, or in my case, I had a spreadsheet I was downloading from Oracle every week, putting it in a spreadsheet, and then sending the spreadsheet out. So instead, I took that and put it right into Apex. Then people could pull it up on their own time. So
what about a DBA help desk request stuff, just for requests coming into the DBAs? Is it, it allows for data entry, right?
yeah, and actually there's built-in apps that you can load. They've already built the ticketing system for you.
Yeah.
So
really?
When you load Application Express, there's a bug tracker app. I'm trying to remember some of the ones that are there, but there's a slew of apps that are there for you. You just have to click install, and then it installs it for you, and you can start using it out of the box. And then say there's a feature that you don't find, you can add it because you can modify the app. So
that's fantastic.
They give you some of that stuff. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can definitely do that.
So the if you wanted to get into coding a front end that rides on Apex, or whatever you do, you can add a button with something behind it, edits or something. What's the language in the back end?
Well, so that's kind of the beauty of it is there none of that coding's really required
Yeah.
because all that stuff, adding buttons and text boxes, any of that stuff is just built into Apex. But, you know, when you start getting to the people that are more advanced, right, then they start doing, I've seen crazy stuff because you can use JavaScripting and jQuery stuff, and there's people that do CSS. So there's a list of folks that are well known for their advanced capabilities. That goes beyond what I know. I've never, you know, these are like hardcore developers. I've never deep dived like that. I mean, I do pretty much the basics. That's it. I never profess to be anything beyond that, you know, and who knows if I'm even doing the basics correctly, right?
Yeah.
But it's there, and you know, there's a website called, I think it's like Apex World, and yeah, I think it's Apex World. Let me see. I'm trying to bring it up right now, but yeah, if you go to Apex World, apex.world, that is a great site because you can get help from all these experts. There's plugins, all kinds of plugins for Oracle Apex. I mean, the community is, I'm blown away at how far Apex has come. And you know, the pivotal moments in Apex that the Apex users were finally like, we finally arrived, right? Was when I saw Joel Kalman and a couple of the other Oracle Apex product managers say that finally at Larry Ellison's speech at Oracle Open World, he finally said the word Apex on stage. He had never muttered those words ever. So that was like, we are finally have arrived. Like everybody was vindicated. See, like, but no, it's huge. And in Europe, it's really big. Like they've got an Apex conference in Europe that's enormous. So I would say, like, I guess that was part of the other point I was trying to get at. When I first started with Apex, you know, when it was HTML-DB back in like 04, 05, there was hardly anybody using it. And now it's like everybody's using it. And another example I'll give you, in 2016, I went to Collaborate and did my first Apex EBS integration presentation. I think there was maybe 4 or 5 presentations total related to Apex in any of the tracks from what I remember. And last year when I went in 2019, just on the app side of the house, there was 25 of them. One of the guys that had attended my session in 2016 was presenting himself for 2 sessions. So it has exploded. It's just, it blows my mind how far it's come along.
When I think it was 2 years ago, we did I dedicated a track at our conference that you attend just to Apex. So I had 5 or 6 tracks or 5 or 6 presentations, and they were packed. Yep. So we decided at that point at our conferences that we're going to have an Apex track just by itself because it's so big. I mean, a lot of people are using it.
Well, I've got a question regarding specifically in the EBS environment. Before developers go out and create all these specialized dashboards and that, like some of the dashboards you showed, Alfredo, for supplier and this and that. I'm curious how it compare. Well, I'm curious if any of you guys have used the Enterprise Command Centers, ECC, which is basically a layer on top of EBS. And it provides all kinds of dashboards specific to a number of the EBS modules like procurement and payables and receivables and, you know, almost all of the EBS products and modules have ECC dashboards that are associated with them. The problem that we had when we implemented ECC was some of the load times were just ridiculous because they had like the world's worst SQL. The dashboards themselves were pretty cool, so I liked the data it presented, but just the cost of doing business of refreshing those views it just wasn't workable, especially if they're hoping, for some kind of near real-time information for a pick list, or where do we stand on as, something in the warehouse or something like that.
Right.
It just wasn't feasible, but it did have some cool presentation layers. So I'm just kind of curious if you guys have seen some of the later versions of ECC. They come out with a new version every 6 months, just as far as the dashboards versus having your EBS developers go out and create dashboards on their own in Apex and basically reinventing the wheel, just
Right.
trying to leverage what's out there existing. But I could also see, just because they have more control over it, seeing what Apex or some of these other tools present, and then just saying, well, okay, that's information we're interested in. Now we're going to create that same view ourselves, and then we can refresh it, or we can take care of the logistics under the covers. But it's just a matter of what really is what's of interest to, like a shipping clerk or somebody in whatever department there is, any of the functional analysts and that. So I'm just kind of curious if any of you guys have seen that or not.
I mean, you bring up that's a totally valid point. At Break Parts, our main e-business suite, unfortunately, is still on 12.1.3. So we have none of the ECC stuff.
Okay.
I have seen, all the announcements, especially in 12.2.10, like, this thing is really coming of age, the ECC stuff. And I hear a lot of positive things. I haven't heard anything about some of the slowness that you maybe described, some of the performance issues.
It just was ball busting. I mean, like 56 hours for some of the modules. Like, you gotta be freaking kidding me.
Wow.
And in fact, we did it on 12.2.9, EBS 12.2.9 with ECC version 3. And since then, version 4 and version 5 have come out. Within version 3, I had to create probably a half dozen SRs and work them for months just to get some of those load scripts to work. And it just seemed like it was really rocky. And the other biggest problem was trying to get somebody savvy with ECC and Oracle support to even work with you, because they knew, EBS by itself, but ECC was so new to them because a lot of it was stolen from Indica, and I don't think Indica was even used that much. So, but it was free.
We got ours from Sativa.
And once you went through the infrastructure investment, basically, of actually implementing ECC, I mean, I had some users that were really jazzed about, oh, this is great. This is exactly what we needed for our procurement or for our shipping or for what our, this or that. Some of the views they really, really liked. It was something that was really going to make a difference in their day-to-day, how they did business. So that kind of gave me validation that it was worth sweating the details of working through some really nasty SQL for the load scripts. And then, but I could also see where they would then say, okay, we like some of these views that it's given us, but we want, everybody has their own custom stuff that they need. So we're going to take that and use that as a stepping stone to then do it in Apex to give us exactly what we need for our custom environment.
Yeah, and that's the thing that, I'm sure for any of us, e-business suite or not, any ERP, even just regular, let's just talk ERP for a second. But there, most businesses, and especially manufacturing companies, they're always going to have some weird process or requirement that none of the out of the box or even the best practices that an ERP recommends, they're going to do something funky. And how do you get to that data then, whether to report on it or feed it back in? You got to create something custom, right? There's always going to be an extension of some sort. So personally, for me, I think it will always have a place because, I mean, they give you these tools to, create forms or OAF pages, but why go through all that headache if you can do it simpler in Apex, and it's such a more modern tool. Like, who the heck wants to create a form? Like,
Right.
those things are like so
Oh, yeah.
92 looking, I mean, I just can't see going back to that, and we haven't touched we had one custom form that we had delivered when we went live at Break Parts back in 2014. That was the last one we ever touched. We have now created everything in Apex since 2015. So, yeah, so I think you're right. I mean, I think the point being, no matter what solution, whether it be Oracle or some third-party bolt-on, they're filling in the gap for what they think is going to help customers get to the data in a different manner. But essentially, at the end of the day, I think shops are going to be so custom that unless you can modify those third-party tools, and I don't know anything about the ECC, so maybe you can do some tweaks here and there.
Yeah, you can't. That's where our end users were at when I rolled off the project, was they were getting smart enough about how to create some of their own custom dashboards.
Okay.
But I really doubt if it gave them as much power as Apex would seem to give them.
But I don't remember now. Remind me. And I'm vaguely remembering. Is ECC an additional licensed feature?
No, it's free.
Okay.
That's one of the. It's free, but it's a heavy lift for the DBAs because the DBAs have to apply about 25 different patches against EBS, and then there's some others specific for ECC. You have to install it on its own standalone web server specifically for WebLogic 12. There's probably a good week or two of browse sweat that a DBA has to do to create an environment before the end users can do it. So that's a non-trivial amount of manpower dedicated to rolling this thing in, as well as the headache of it just didn't seem like it was ready for prime time, at least within the last 6 months or so. Maybe some of these newer releases took care of some of the problems, like the very long loads, the fact that some of the stuff just didn't work, or there was also a lot of administrative stuff as far as granting access to those different dashboards, which was actually well suited to my last client, because my last client was really heavy on separation and segregation of duties. They really didn't want different groups seeing other people's data. And so they basically enforced all that by very granular responsibilities. If you were a clerk authorized to basically approve like purchase orders up to $5,000, that was a separate responsibility compared to somebody the next level up. Or, it was just very specific things tied to what their day-to-day work duties were. And because of that, they wanted to get to the point where particular end users would only be granted certain ECC views because they really didn't want them having visibility to stuff. And I don't know how they handle, because I do know that they were using Apex, but I don't know how they managed just the access issue. I mean, it wasn't like it was classified information, but it could be sensitive information because so much of it was suppliers and a lot of distribution stuff and ordering, and there was some money involved to it, but they were just very specific about how they granted access. And so I'm real curious how they would restrict that kind of access. Because let me ask you this, if you have an Apex user, do they have access to all the tables?
No. So the way we actually did it was there's a couple of ways, right? So it supports a couple different authentication methods.
Okay,
So it supports, if you have licensing for it, obviously, like Oracle Access Manager, OID, all that stuff, it'll do
yeah,
that. What we ended up doing was, and I don't know if you're familiar with them, there's a company called Insum that's out of Canada, and they are big, that's all they do is Apex, okay?
oh, really?
They do a lot of stuff in the US, and they've got a couple of Oracle aces on their team that I think Mike and we
Yeah.
both know who they are.
Yeah, Martin actually spoke at our conference 2 weeks ago, or a week, whatever it was, 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay, Martin D'Souza.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like him and, Francis, I think he's one of the co-owners or the owner of the company, and Sylvain and a couple other folks, but